I'm so excited. This is so exciting because it's our very first empowerHER Fireside Chat. And if this all works out, and I'm not in charge of technical, Ann Marie is, so it should work out, then we can do more of these and just create more community for us while we're all in isolation right now. So I'm Cara Belvin. I'm the founder of empowerHER. I'm quarantined with my adorable family. Come say hi. I've got Ava and Murphy, my daughter Ava, my son Murphy, my husband Shane. We have a dog somewhere in there. Her name's Holly. It's a her. It's a her. I know that. It's not a him. Okay. And we're just now gonna get us all started and make a formal introduction to sort of who I am for all the girls that are on the call who know who I am. I'm the founder of empowerHER. For those of you who are on the call who may be learning more about empowerHER, I'm super excited to tell you more. But I started empowerHER about 5 years ago in Boston. My mom died when I was 9 years old of breast cancer. And she was 37 years old. She was sick for 2 years. And after my mom passed, I was really, really fortunate to have a ton of support from family and friends and an awesome community in Connecticut and, you know, all the love and support that I really needed, but never met another girl whose mom died. And when you're a girl like me, it's kind of like living on planet Mars. And so the idea for empowerHER was really to, you know, make sure that girls could meet other girls their own age, other girls like them. And it was 5 years ago we started empowerHER with just really cool, laid back, super fun events like a Mother's Day retreat, a sleepover on Mother's Day weekend, and a beach party, and a yoga event, and a cooking class, and ultimately a one-on-one mentor program. And so that was 5 years ago in my little town outside of Boston, Massachusetts. And because we were really the only one in the country doing this, lots of other amazing men and women around the country started to say, well, I'll start a chapter. And so now there's our very first chapter outside of New England in Southern California. And we're really proud of that and just launched about a month ago. And so now serving girls and young women up to age 24 whose moms have died in Southern California. And so we hope that, you know, your city will be next. And plans are underway. So that's a little bit about who I am. I'm super excited to introduce Ann Marie. And Ann Marie and I are going to just co-host this whole jam. Ann Marie was our first full-time hire at empowerHER just recently as our full-time development director. And development is just another word for fundraising. And so Ann Marie and I together work really closely on raising money for empowerHER to keep all of our programs at no charge to the family. Today is a very, very challenging time for any nonprofit, and we are not going to spend our time on that tonight. We're just going to look for hope and optimism anywhere we can find it. But that is Ann Marie's job. I'll let her tell you a little bit more about who she is and why she's so passionate about empowerHER. So.
Oh, thank you, Cara. And one thing that I left out earlier is that at the end of this, we will do a question and answer. We'll just get to whatever we have time for. So if you do have a question, especially if it's directed at Gabby or Marisa or Dayna specifically or Cara, feel free to write a question in there and then we'll get to it at the end. So like Cara said, I'm Ann Marie. I've been involved with empowerHER since 2014, right when I graduated from college. And like most of the girls and women in this community, I had never met another girl whose mom had died until I was in college, where my friends who are, many of you might know them, Jade and Leah, they introduced me to this. And immediately it's just like this light bulb goes off in your head, like, wow, maybe I'm not the only one. So I got involved in empowerHER then, and then was just a volunteer throughout my years in Boston. And there was a turning point for me where I said, you know, I love Massachusetts, I love Boston, but I just think there's something more for me. And I think I have to bring something with me when I do make this big move. So at that time, I decided to move out to Los Angeles. I had actually never even been to LA before. I really just pulled this trigger and said, I'm just going to go after it. I'm going to start something new. I was 26 years old at the time. And I had never really left Massachusetts. So I booked a one-way ticket with my Aunt Mandy, and we flew out here. And I always said, like, I want to bring empowerHER with me, but at that time we didn't really know exactly how that could be done. But Cara and the rest of this community is pretty incredible. And we even introduced an entirely new community here in Southern California that made it possible. So it's incredible to bring empowerHER from Boston here to LA and watch what we've done in Boston grow here. So for me personally, I lost my mom when I was 10 years old to a brain tumor. And for many years, I really never talked about it. Like I said, never met anyone whose mom had died. So to get to be a part of this community back in New England and now really taking it on this national level is just beyond what I could ever imagine. And it's the biggest, my heart is so big. There's more gratitude than I could ever express. And I just am excited for what's to come for it. So thank you so much, Cara.
Oh my God, of course, Ann Marie. So like Ann Marie said, we're so excited because we get all these messages on the bottom, and we want everyone to be heard at the end. We're going to try to get everyone's questions. And so think about it, think about some questions that you might want to ask our panelists. We have just the most extraordinary women, the most brave, beautiful souls. And we're just going to bring our first guest on now, which is our brave, beautiful Marisa De Silva.
Yay!
Coming on now.
Thank you.
Drum roll. There she is. And so I'm going to make an introduction for you, if that's all right, Marisa. Okay, I'm going to make a very brief introduction. Marisa is with her great aunt, Auntie Lori, who we affectionately call Auntie Lori. We hope that's all right with you.
Oh, I love it.
And so we've now known Marisa and Auntie Lori for now maybe 3 years at empowerHER. And so I'm super excited to introduce you, Marisa. I just want you to tell everybody who you are and also tell us about your beautiful mom, Terry.
So I'm Marisa De Silva. As you know, this is Auntie Lori O'Neill. And so we both have grief and loss. Whenever we think of, not whenever we think of her, but whenever we think of her dying and her passing and the sad things. But we pushed through it, and Cara and empowerHER is one of the ways. And we also, you're crying.
Of course. Auntie always cries. That's okay.
That's okay.
No, it's
okay
a good thing to cry. It's a good thing to cry. Yeah.
Yep.
And we also write. So we wrote a book, and it's called Graceful Woman Warrior. You can get it on Amazon. And
But
so,
who really wrote the book? Your mom. Her mom. So tell them about your mom.
She was very brave. Her full name at the beginning was Luana Mountain Born Robinson. And the story behind that is?
So when she was 12, she was my niece. Terry was my niece. And my sister Jeannie they were leaving from Nova Scotia to drive to Vancouver to move. And Luana said, Mom, nobody knows the name Luana. I'm changing my name. And my sister said, okay, what do you want to change it to? And she said, Terry. So my sister said, okay, if now's a good time as any. So she changed her name to Terry. But when Terry was diagnosed with breast cancer at 37, she re-embraced the name Luana, because the reason my sister named her Luana was because Luana means graceful woman warrior. So Terry started a blog about her breast cancer journey, and that was the name of the blog. And right before she died, she asked me to publish it, and I promised her I would. So when it was time to do that, I asked Marisa, in her grief, we had joined empowerHER when Marisa was in 3rd grade. I want to say she's in 5th grade now. And I had invited her to write letters to her mom when she was grieving. I'm a social worker specializing in grief and loss. So of course that's kind of what I do. And she would. And then when I said, do you want me to put it on the blog? She said yes. And then I said, do you want me to put it in the book? And she said yes.
I want to be famous.
Yep, she wanted to be famous, and she shared her story. And together we have, for the past year, shared her mom's beautiful story of living what?
Living life to the fullest.
That's what her mom did best. Even though she had breast cancer, she was determined to live fully with you and share in every special moment she could.
Well, you are such a brave and beautiful girl for living your mom's legacy. My brother and I always said that after my mom died, that I felt in a lot of ways we were living my mom's legacy. And so I feel our stories are quite similar, Marisa. So Ann Marie, you want to share some of your questions with Marisa?
Yeah, so Marisa, what you just said reminds me of this quote that Cara and I actually stumbled upon last week. And the quote is, "There is a calmness and a quiet strength within us grievers at this time. As everyone else panics, we can draw on our own resilience. Having faced the end of the world once before, we know we can get through anything." So that quote really reminds me of you, because you're so brave, beautiful and brave on the inside and out, coming and doing this in front of everyone. So I wanted to see kind of how you felt about that. How do you feel about that quote, and do you feel brave as you should?
I do feel brave. I feel like the bravest one was my mom. No offense. Because she went through such a journey, and she had so many supporters, and there are a lot of other girls out there who went through the same thing, and so I feel like that quote really gives advice almost to all the girls out there like me.
Yeah,
that's so great. And you can really have other people draw strength from you because of that. So one story that I'll share in this case is that when I was 10 years old, it was right around the time of 9/11. We had just lost my mom right after 9/11. And at that time, it was really just an extraordinary time in my life because you feel so vulnerable. And there was so much going on in such a short amount of time. And really, it feels like a little taste of that, reliving this now as an adult, of another kind of scary thing that's going on that is really out of our control. So I wanted to ask you, does something like coronavirus make you feel that way, a little bit nervous or anxious?
Kind of. It's hard not having a mom be there all the time to support me, but I have Auntie Lori, and I have my dad, and I have my whole family, not with me, but on Zoom.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
FaceTime and everything. And so there's also just believing that you can get through it. And a positive attitude changes everything. But without a mom, it is harder.
Yeah, of course. And that again draws back to all of the strength that you show, and it's so unbelievable. You should be so proud.
Thank you.
Great.
Well, I have one thing to add too to Marisa, if I can, because Marisa, you've had such courage to share your story. And the one thing that I kind of thought when I look back at my life, my mom died when I was 9 years old. And I kind of felt like for the rest of my life, my friends would sort of draw strength from me, because they were going to experience some really, really hard things later in life, sort of in sequence, I like to call it. And Auntie Lori, you can correct me from, Auntie Laura is a school psychologist, and she knows, but I always felt that in some ways that, my loss was really out of sequence. I felt like I had experienced something so extraordinary at such a young age, and wherever I could, I wanted people to draw strength from me. And So I don't know if Marisa, you know that right now, but that is kind of something that I thought that I took away from my early loss was, you know, going through my life and watching as other people, you know, overcome some really extraordinary adversities, and who will draw strength from you, Marisa. So again, it's why I say you're so brave and courageous to talk about this so openly now when I just couldn't when I was your age.
I think the thing that fills my heart the most is the fact that Marisa can take her mom with her to school. I mean, I lost my dad when I was 8, and in those days, I wasn't even allowed to go to the funeral. I wasn't allowed to say goodbye. I didn't even think he was gone, quite frankly, because I was, you know, I was 8 years old. And so that's why I became a social worker specializing in grief and loss. But the fact that Marisa can take her mom to school, that we've done book talks in her classroom,
Yeah.
you know, that when she moved to Dartmouth and I had made her a book about her Marisa and Mamai's love story, and she brought that book the first day of school to share with her class. And that was that's beautiful to me. And that helps other people. It helps the kids to know it's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay to talk about it.
I know. We tried that. We tried hashtag it's okay to talk about my loss. Like, I'd rather you ask me about it than whisper behind my back, which is, I think, for a lot of times what I thought, you know, was happening with me. So
because that's what the world was telling you, Cara. That's what the world told all of us, you know. But you've changed that story big time with empowerHER, which is just so important. So important.
No, let's hope so, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, look at us here tonight, talking about grief, and I mean, because this coronavirus is a loss for all of us. Everything is changed, and it triggers all of those feelings that we've had, you know.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yep. Absolutely. All right. Is this Ann Marie? I think this is mine. I've got 2 more questions for you, Marisa.
Oh no, we have a couple more for Marisa and then Gabby.
I've got something else for Marisa. So we do at the end of our events at empowerHER, when we've got all the girls together and all the women, all the mentors, we like to leave everyone with 3 mantras, 3 things that we hope that girls will take with them. And so I'll speak them right now, Marisa, but I know that you could probably recite them too. We say these 3 things: your feelings are a gift, it's okay to ask for help, and you are enough. Mm-hmm. And the reason that we do that is because I think a lot of us, like Ann Marie and I, just so desperately wanted to know that, you know, it's all right to ask for help. So Marisa has recited this mantra for the girls, and we hope hearing it from Marisa that it will have a lasting effect for them. But Marisa, do you want to talk at all about that? Why you think those mantras are important? Maybe you knew them before, but why you think it's important for any girl your age to know that?
The first one, your feelings are a gift. When I think of that, I think of why you're saying that is because many girls sometimes have sometimes they cry and are ashamed of it.
Mm-hmm.
And but your feelings, they're a gift to you so that you can express them and not just hold them in. And if you hold them in, it can actually make it worse for you. So your feelings are a gift, and just embrace them. And the second one is...
Reminder, Cara. What's the second one?
Yeah, it's okay to ask for help.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
So that one is really...
That's a hard one.
Do you think it's easy to ask for help? If you were having a bad day, would you be honest with an adult in your life and say, I'm just having a really bad day?
Me, yes. But other people, some people I know are maybe a little bit shy if it's not a that they really trust.
Yeah. Yep.
But it's important, huh?
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
And it's holding it in.
Yeah.
So.
And you are enough. That's one of our favorite sayings.
You are enough.
Yeah.
There was a whole song about it.
There was a
She
whole-
played 3 times in the
I
car.
did.
And then
Yep.
I
sent it to
automatically
Cara.
memorized.
I sent it to Cara.
And then I sang it all day in school because it was still in my head.
Yeah.
Yep. Because you
Yes.
are enough. All right, so we have a fun game. So before we bring Gabby Shea, we're gonna ask you like rapid fire. You ready, Marisa?
Okay.
All right, so I have 3 super quick questions for you. You just have to answer with like the first thing that comes to your mind. Name one way that you have kept some normalcy in your day since the coronavirus.
Oh, hand sanitizer.
Awesome. Okay, that's a normal thing you would have done before coronavirus. So you're still gonna do it?
Yeah, we do
Okay,
it
great.
in school in the morning. So
Perfect. Okay, what's your morning routine now? Now that you don't have to wake up super, super early, like what's your morning routine like?
at my dad's house or at Auntie Lori's house?
Yeah.
Either.
Yeah.
Okay.
Are you sleeping super late or are you getting up early?
Oh yeah. I have this Google Classroom thing on my computer, so it's how our class like texts kind of each other.
Yep.
And so so a boy in my class, he woke up at like 12:30. I normally just wake up at 10:30, but
Which is
he
late.
woke me up.
That is
At
super
Auntie's
late.
house, we get up earlier. At Auntie's house, we definitely get up earlier. Yeah.
Okay. All right, I love it. All right, and then last question, name one silver lining. Name one good thing that's come out of all of this in the last 10 days.
Hope.
I love that. So you're hopeful, right?
Yeah.
I love that. That's awesome. Well, I love it. I love both of you. I'm so glad that you guys were on this tonight. You guys were awesome.
Thanks for having us.
Oh my God, thank you. All right. So stick around because if we have any questions, right?
Yep.
Okay. Well.
Okay. All right. Mwah.
Bye.
Bye.
So we're going to bring on Gabby Shea.
Hi.
Yay, Gabby.
I'm here.
Yay.
I've got my hot chocolate and we're just going to sit by the campfire.
Sounds delicious.
So I'm so excited that you're on and I get to introduce you to everybody and we'll chat about our story and when we met. And but before that, most importantly, just can you tell them who you are and tell them about your beautiful mom?
Yes. I'm Gabby Shea. I'm from New York. I work full time. I am a wife and a mother to 3 beautiful girls. My oldest is Marley, who is 12. Then I have Maya, who's 10, and McKenna, who is 5. So they make life very fun and exciting. My mom, I was 17 when my mom died. That was over 20 years ago. And you know, there's a lot that I don't remember for whatever reason, but there are certain things that I do. I remember how she used to say my name. You know, I remember how, you know, she loved to hug and cuddle and snuggle. So it's been an interesting journey, not having her here. At 17, I was at a place of transition. I was graduating from high school, had senior prom coming up, was thinking about where I was going to college. So when she died, it was pretty instant. She died in her sleep. I woke up one morning and she did not. So it was pretty devastating. And now having to face all of those things without her being there was pretty traumatic. It was definitely a difficult time, but you know, as you grow, you find that way to pull yourself out of the hole that you feel that you're in, and then you realize that there truly is life after grief. Take time, but you do eventually get there. Yeah, you know, I look in the mirror and I look at pictures and I find that I look a lot like her. My girls will see pictures of her when she was younger and ask if that was me. And that's endearing to know that I've grown into a woman who is very much like my mother. So, you know, I definitely look forward to, you know, continuing to bring out some of her beautiful qualities.
That's awesome. I love the way that you just said that. And how did she say your name?
Well, she used to call, so my name is Gabrielle. I'm named after my father, whose name was Gabriel. They used to call him Gabby, so they couldn't call me Gabby just because that would be too confusing. So someone said, hey, let's call her Barbie. So she never called me Barbie or Bobby. She always called me Baba. So there are moments where I can hear in my head her screaming, Baba, you know, looking for me somewhere throughout the house. So that is a constant, you know, it rings through my head and I hear her voice. So that, like I said, it's very endearing for me.
I love that. I know. So when you and I first met, it was maybe 3 years ago. And it was like love at first sight when I met you. And we're similar ages, and I was 9, you were 17, but I've always felt this way, that there was like a unique connectedness when you meet someone else whose mom died. And like even growing up, I would know of a celebrity whose mom died, and I felt this odd connection to them.
Oh, yeah.
And so you and I share this one thing in common, Hope Edelman. And
Yes.
Hope Edelman, for anyone who's listening, wrote the book Motherless Daughters, and it changed my life. I was 18 years old when I read it, and I read the book cover to cover under a tree in my hometown park. And it really was the first time I ever learned that I wasn't the only girl in the world whose mom died, because in my child brain, that's really what I thought. And so you and I, we were so fortunate. We got to work with Hope Edelman and work on this awesome event that we thought was so impactful. And you had the greatest line. You called Hope Edelman the Wonder Woman of motherless daughters.
Definitely. I mean, like I look back on our meeting as fate. I really do. You know, just to quickly put it out there. I was a part of this women's affinity group at my company, and you know, I happened to I was going to miss a meeting. I was going to pass on the meeting. And I said, you know what, let me call in. And I decided I was going to call in. I was going to be a fly on the wall. I wasn't going to chime in. I wasn't going to contribute anything because I had a bunch of things that I was multitasking with. And as I'm on the call, I hear them say something like, oh, you know, we're thinking about sponsoring this event. There's this woman, you know, her name is Hope Edelman. It's a like boss or something. So no one in the group knew exactly the impact that this would have on me. And as soon as I heard Hope's name, I said, oh my God, I got to be a part of this in any way, shape, or form. So I took my phone to you and I said, you know what? You know, I didn't plan on chiming in, but you guys mentioned Hope Edelman. We have to do this. We have to sponsor it. I will do whatever it takes to bring her, the organization. And at the time, I didn't know much about him. I didn't know anything about empowerHER.
Yeah.
But I knew that you guys were linked to Hope in some way, and I felt like I had to be a part of it. You said Hope changed your life. I'm going to say she saved my life. You know, 17, like you guys, I didn't have anyone in my circle who had dealt with mother loss. I found myself comforting my friends because I had friends coming up to me saying, oh my God, my mom is a single mom. If she died, I would have no one. And days after I'm like consoling my friends, thinking to myself, shouldn't this be the other way around? Again, like I knew no one who had suffered from mother loss, and I really, truly was dealing with it on my own. Started college. I remember taking the train to school on the train, sunglasses on in the fall, and crying. A part of me hoping that some nice New Yorker would turn to me and say, baby, are you okay?
Yeah.
And the part of me
What do you
so
need?
Embarrassed that I'm doing this out in public. And during breaks, during lunch, I would sometimes, don't do this, but I would cut class and I would go to Barnes & Noble. I went to Baruch College in Union Square, and I would go to Barnes & Nobles and I would immerse myself in the death and dying section because I was in this space of, I need to get over this. What are the stages of grief? I'm at stage, how quickly can I get to the last stage? Like this hurts, this does not feel good. I need to get past it and quickly. So I would read Elizabeth Kubler-Ross and everything that I could find on death and dying. And I found Motherless Daughters, and I started reading it, and my first thought was, oh my God, these women, these girls know exactly what I'm feeling. And I remember buying the book and reading it every chance that I got. And I would highlight things that I was feeling, things that I could relate to. And 22 years later, I still have the book. And I find myself, you know, unfortunately having to pass that book along to friends who have suffered the same loss. I remember being at work and no one knowing that I had suffered from this loss. You know, after I had started my first job, my boss said to me, you know what, I hear you talking about your dad a lot, but I don't hear you talk about your mom. And I was like, oh yeah, she died when I was 17. Now do you want to see this report? Because you have to be that person that sucks the air out of the room.
Oh yeah.
So you don't
want to be that person. That's too much to bear.
This. When the empowerHER event came to my job and Cara allowed me to host half of it, was amazing. I stood up at the podium and I looked out and saw the faces of about 150 women who had suffered the same loss that I suffered. And we didn't have to say anything to each other. It was just this knowing look of, I feel you. And this solidarity in knowing that, okay, I'm not alone. I've never been alone. And, you know, there are people out there who understand and know what I'm going through and make me feel like this alien because of, you know, something that was out of my control. So I really believe that meeting you, Cara, and being a part of empowerHER and meeting Hope Edelman and being able to break bread with Hope Edelman was really a highlight of my life. So it was absolutely
amazing. And I love that you brought up like how your mom said your name. When I first met you, I said, like, say my name again. You say it like my mom. You have a New York accent. My mother had a Boston accent, so she would say Cara, and I love that. It's so endearing to me. So right off the bat, but
I'll say something else. Speaking of like saying names, during that conversation, I remember someone saying, you know what, it might have been Hope. You know, we end our, you know, events or we end our circles with saying our mother's name. And until that, I had realized that I just stopped saying her name. Saying it because it was too hard. You know, too hard. And after 20 some odd years, that was one of the first times I said it. Her name is Esther. And it,
I love that.
Like this heavy weight and heavy burden that I had held on to for so long. So it is cathartic, you know, to be able to talk about it and to be able to share your story. You know, 10 years ago, no one knew that my mother passed away except a close-knit unit. Now you can't shut me up about it. Anybody asks me about it, anybody wants advice about it, I'm here to spread yes, there is hope outside of the grief and there is life after, you know, this pain that we've all suffered from and endured.
Well, because I hope this is right. I hope that we're saying this right. You and I are on the other side of grief. Like there's beauty in grief. And so when I love what you said that, you know, you have to say your mom's name. I didn't say my mom's name for 30 years because it if I said her name, it either sucked the, you know, the air out of the room, and I had to protect everybody else around me, which is a really heavy burden. And that's why we say to the girls, it's okay to ask for help, meaning it's okay to say like, I'm depleted. I have nothing left. I just need to be in a puddle today. Because you really do spend a lot of time protecting your grandmother and your dad and your siblings and the other people and your friends who are grieving. But my mom's name is Kit. And when I started empowerHER 5 years ago, I kept saying, for some reason, I just always felt like I was going to do this as much as I would do this for the little girl, I would do it for her mother, because as a mom ourselves, I know I can't leave this earth knowing my kids wouldn't be okay. And that's for me, whether it was a sudden death or a terminal illness. And I needed to know that I needed to help these moms take care of their daughters. And I also, I love, and I didn't know this, but I love that out of this came a way for women like you to talk about your mom, celebrate your mom, say her name, live her legacy, find ways that you emulate her and totally, you know, capitalize on that. Like, what were the most beautiful parts of her, and be who she was. And so I brought this up really, really quickly to you because I love it. And it's this awesome interview between Anderson Cooper and Stephen Colbert. And they're talking about how their dads both died when they were 10 years old, and they crossed paths, but never talked about their dad's death, which we understand all the reasons why. But they get into this conversation and they describe it as the day that their father died, it was like a before and after.
Oh,
and
definitely.
There was a guy named Steve, and he was a normal boy. His father died, and then there was this afterlife, and he learned that with a phone call, your life can change. And I think that's a really heavy burden for a child to bear. And maybe that's just a part of life, but did you feel like that because your mom died
Absolutely.
suddenly?
Yeah, I mean, and interestingly enough, like the night before, and it's funny too, because I tell people this story and they're like, you are lying. But you know, the night before my mom passed away, I remember she was in the kitchen and she was sewing. She had taken up sewing, and it was kind of scary because she was always threatening to like make something for me. And I was doing again, I'm dating myself. I was doing the New York Daily News Great Adventure thing. Like, you tickets if you cut out squares and you glue them on or something like that. And she had, you know, as I was going upstairs with my daily newspaper, she had said to me, you know, oh, my friend's daughter has this ballet thing that I'm going to take you with me to. And I said, really? Like, take your husband, like go on a date with him or something. Like, you don't need to take me. And she looks at me and she says, you know, you should cherish every moment you have with me because you never know when I'm going to go. And at 17, I'm like, you're crazy. You're not going anywhere. And I went about my business. The next morning, I woke up and I went to a surprise. You know, I thought it was weird that she didn't wake me up. And I go into her room and she was lifeless. So yes, I definitely have that. It's like AD, you know, BC AD, right?
Yeah.
I definitely have that, you know, before mom and after mom.
Yeah.
There are two like phases in my life. You know, I do want to add that, yes, you know, the grief is there, but after time, it becomes bearable. You know, you know, you don't cry as often. You know, yes, the memories are more positive memories as opposed to replaying the day that she died. So I don't, you know, lie to anyone and say you wake up one day and voila, like you no longer feel, you know, this pain or this hurt. It's still, but it transitions into something that definitely is more bearable, definitely makes it easier for you to say her name, definitely makes it easier for you to look at pictures and remember her the way, you know, that you want to. So it does become bearable.
Yeah. And I think everyone needs to hear that. Like I always say, you just need to hear it's survivable. So it's perfect. I love all of this. I want to talk to you like forever, but I'm so grateful that you would share all this, and it's not easy to do. So I really, really
You don't have to ask me twice, Cara. Like I said, the minute you open that floodgate, I'm open, an open book.
I love it. I love it. All right. So stick around. So
yes, definitely.
We've got questions. So, all right. So we're going to bring on Dayna.
Hi.
There she is.
There I am.
Here's Dayna. We're so excited that you're here, and I'm so excited for you to introduce yourself and to tell us about your beautiful mom.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm so thrilled to be a part of this organization and everyone that's joining us today. This is just such a cool, amazing community and concept for women to support each other. My name's Dayna. I am originally from Seattle, but I live in Los Angeles now. I was 21 when my mom got sick, and I was 22 when she passed away. It was my senior year of college. My mom's name was Julie. She was the brightest, coolest, sassiest, most live out loud person you could possibly imagine. And I know that everyone really loves their mom and thinks their mom is special, but she was truly a light. She was just a unique person that commanded a room every time she walked in, and we were really close. Her whole life and her whole goal was to make sure that my sister and I were taken care of, and we were her world. She just loved us so hard, and we were really lucky to have her as a mom. My sister and I are first generation college students, meaning that no one else in our family had gone before us. So it was a really big deal to my mom that we go to school, that we complete our education and have a different life than we'd had growing up, than she had growing up. So it was my senior year. I was so excited, like everyone's excited. I had senioritis. I wanted to get out of there. I wanted to start my life. I was just enjoying my time with my friends, and I had been at school for about a month, and I had talked to my mom on the phone because my university was about 5 hours away from where I grew up. So we would have a halfway meeting point that I would drive home with friends, and she would pick me up and take me home. And I would come home every month or so because I was a big baby. I still am. I was very homesick from her all the time. I couldn't do a real sleepover until I was like 15 because I would just get sick every time and just did not like to be away from her and home.
Me too.
And we had made a meeting plan, and she was working 2 jobs at the time, and she was telling me that she was having some trouble with memory and thought that she had Alzheimer's, and she was young. She was 53 at the time. So I was like, that's not what it is. You're just tired. And she was also very dramatic, just like I'm very dramatic. So I assumed, you hope that it's just nothing's wrong. So the next day she was supposed to be picking me up at the halfway point, and about an hour into that drive, her friend reached out to me and let me know that she needed to go to the hospital and something was really wrong. And about 4 hours later, we had a scan of her brain, and she had a brain tumor. Ended up being terminal brain cancer, and she passed away a little bit over a year later.
Wow.
So it was a tough one. And just being in school at the time, and having to make the decision as to whether I didn't complete school or came home was just horrible. Obviously I wanted to be with her, but her and I kind of had a back and forth because she really wanted me to finish school. But, I always say grief isn't linear. My mom passed away 7.5 years ago, and I feel as good, I think, as you could at this stage. We were so close, and I was so reliant on her, but it's always going to be hard, and it's always going to be something that you circle back on and wish was different. But I really try hard to focus on the positives these days, and about how lucky I was to have her, even though it was for a really short amount of time. I was just blessed to be her, and I just work really hard on living her legacy and being who I think she would want me to be in the world.
And you have to know, like, that she would be so proud of who you are. And it's like the cheesiest line in the world, but I'm sure you hear this all the time. If, like, I'd walk into a room and my mom's family would say, "Oh my God, you look just like Kit. Say that again. You sounded just like Kit." Like, I don't know if people do that for you, but I'm sure people are saying to you, your mother would be so proud of who you've become. Like, is that something that you take comfort in, or is that something that is more upsetting? Like, how have you spent the last few years with all the success that you've had and this extraordinary life that you live now? Do you think of her in everything you do?
Oh my God, she's the first thing I think about in the morning. I think about her all throughout the day. It's my greatest honor is when someone says, "You're just like your mom. You remind me so much of your mother." People who knew her. My mom and I actually have the same birthday. So we were just cut from the same cloth. She used to call me Mini Me because I was just her little carbon copy. And I'm really proud of that. And that's something that I want everyone to, I feel like when people know me, they get to know her. So everything I do in my day is just, like I said, living up to that legacy. And I know my mother is proud of me. I know she's really proud of my sister. Mm-hmm. I know that we had to beat some pretty unfortunate circumstances that a lot of people don't have to go through. And I know that she really set us up to be successful. So again, it just all comes back to being grateful and fortunate to have had her.
Yeah. And I don't know if you feel this way, like, it was kind of like, the best way I would describe it was like lightning bolts. Like, I would think of my mother, it felt like every minute of every day, but it'd be like a flash or like a lightning bolt. And that, I think at first that was a lot, but it subsides. Like, do you feel like that, like in the first couple of years after your mom passed away and transitioning out of college? And that's just such a hard time anyways, I think, for girls. Did you think that it just got that much easier, that fast, or?
I think I always say that grief isn't linear because it's just, it's to me, it's waves, right? So when it first happens, there's, to me, my personal experience at least was there was this time period where I was in pretty bad denial and it just didn't feel real. So I wasn't grieving per se as much as I should have been. But then when I started to really give into what I was feeling and letting it happen, it was more like, okay, it's every minute right now. And then it would be every hour, and then it would be every day, and then every week, and then so on and so forth. So it does come in little flashes, and it was really frequent for the first. I'm not gonna lie, it was for me. I didn't do so well with my mom's death, so it took a few years until I got my footing again and became that person that she had raised. But it's different for everyone, and some people. I think that any way you grieve is okay. Any way it feels for you, any way it looks for you. You can have 20 different women and each of them will have a different story and each of them will have handled the loss of their mom differently. But it's all okay. Even if you don't feel anything, if you feel it all and you feel it all the time, it's just, for me, it was an all the time thing, but there's no right way to grieve.
Exactly. And the one thing we always talk about in empowerHER is that there's absolutely no judgment. Like, when I first started empowerHER, it was because I started to meet all these young widowed dads who would ask me really personal questions about, how my brother and my dad and I got through it. And I thought, like, why are they finding this somewhere else? Like, why don't they have open, honest communication with their friends and family? And then I was like, okay, I understand that now. But what I would always say to them was, I know a little bit about what it is to be your daughter, but I don't know anything about what it is to be you. And I've carried that through at empowerHER. I feel like you can never judge or set up a young girl to say, and first of all, we don't know what the relationship was with their mother, and it doesn't matter type of loss or time of loss. It's just, you don't want any young person to feel guilty if they're not crying or feeling defeated if they cry all the time. But that pain was so real. I mean, that pain, I say this all the time, I hope I never visit that kind of heartbreak ever again in my life, because it was so deafening. But it is survivable, and I wish I heard that when I was 10 years old and 12 years old and 15 years old. Like, you will survive this, because when you have such great pain, there's just no way of seeing out of that.
Well, and then for me personally, I felt really resentful of that. Because you're right, it is totally survivable, but at the time I would feel so frustrated that I can get through this, but why did this happen to my mom, and why am I in this particular situation? And even in moments, I mean, it's agonizing. I actually love the way that you just said that you hope you never revisit that heartbreak. I feel the same way. I hope this is the worst thing that ever happens to me. And I just know that even in the most agonizing moments, sometimes I couldn't cry. Like, I would go a long time without crying, but being in a constant stream of pain. And then there were others, and then sometimes I'd be fine, and then it would hit me out of nowhere, and that release would happen, and it's okay. Whatever it looks like for you, it's okay.
Exactly. Like, it'll all be okay.
So one thing that Dayna had said earlier before this call that I just loved and that I have to bring to the table is that grief isn't a dirty word. And so many people, even on this call right now, have different stories about their mom. Like, some might not have even known their mom. Others their mom to substance abuse. Others lost their mom to sickness. I mean, we all have something so different. This issue it just doesn't discriminate. It doesn't matter. It can happen. And you can grieve in ways where you don't really know how to grieve. Like, I don't even really think I knew what the word grieve meant for a while, or how to do that. So that's one thing that is really special about this community too, is that it is a no judgment zone. It's not conditional. You can express it in any way that you want. You can grieve. Am I grieving? I'm not sure. Maybe I had this relationship with my mom, or another relationship with my mom. And that's what I think is really special and makes this just such a no judgment zone. Dayna, I have a question for you. So you're just totally killing it here in LA. And so when in your life did you give permission to yourself to really have drive, and how do you feed that drive daily, especially with everything that you have going on and being so busy in LA?
That's such a great question, because for a long time after she had passed away, being my mom's mini me, the whole reason I wanted to go to school is I wanted to graduate. I wanted to get a good job. I wanted to then in turn take care of my mom. And make her life easier that it hadn't been her whole existence. So when I felt like that opportunity was robbed of me when she passed away, she was my motivation for everything. So I just kind of had to start over at square one. Like, what am I doing here? What do I want? Who do I want to be in the world? And I was always really competitive. I was always driven. I was always motivated. I put my mind to something and I did it. I felt really lost. I had studied to be a journalist all throughout college. That was my game plan. I knew when I was 13, I was going to be a television reporter. I actually took a job as a television reporter after college. My mom had pressured me to take the job, even though she was sick and it was still 3 hours away from home. She felt like she was getting to see me live my dreams. So I took the job. It didn't work out because I was in such a bad mental place at the time. I was doing the same like back and forth drive every weekend. And I wanted to spend her last moments with her. So when she passed away, I had to totally rethink what my whole life purpose was. And it took me a while, probably a year, while I was just kind of going through the motions at a job, maybe a year and a half, till I found out about an industry. I did medical device sales for almost 7 years. And I felt really motivated by that. I was like, that's something, there's few women in that industry. It has a high potential for earnings. You have to be really good at what you do. You have to be competitive, all the things that I was before my mom. And I had interviewed for that for about a year, finally got a job in the industry, and just threw all of my energy back into that. When I got that job and I started training for it, because you have to have such a high skill set to do it, I started to feel like myself again for the first time from the day that I heard my mom was sick. And I started to realize, well, my motivation can now be me. What's the life that I want to have, the life that she wanted for me? And it's giving yourself permission to say, my full-time job doesn't have to be grieving my mom, because I know as much as I love her and think about her all the time, I know that's what she would want. She'd want me to be happy. She'd want me to be okay. She'd want me to move forward. And I think it was about 2 years total after she passed away that I started to believe that and started to rework this idea of, like Gabby had said earlier, there was 2 phases of my life, before her and after her. And after her, I didn't have as great of a start out as I would have liked to have hoped, but no matter how far down a bad path you go, you can always come back. And I recognized that I wasn't myself, and I was a driven person, and I did have goals, and it's okay to focus on that and have wins and be happy and be successful and know that that's what she would want for you.
Love it.
And that's still what I'm doing right now. You know, my life has taken a total change. Had a big career change, life change in the last year and a half or so, but it's still about having that drive to pursuing whatever it is that my end goal is, and knowing that I can throw myself into whatever project that, you know, I want to be doing.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Dayna. You were amazing. All the panelists were, and we have a million questions coming in that I don't even know where to begin. But I think we'll cycle back, and if Marisa and Auntie Lori are still here, we're going to go ahead and pull them up, because we have a question from Ainsley. Ainsley says to Marisa, what has been your favorite part about joining empowerHER? And I'm about to bring her back, so just give me 1 second while I do that.
Here we are.
There they are. So Marisa, in case you didn't hear me, we have a question specifically for you from Ainsley, and she's asking, what's been your favorite part since joining empowerHER? What have you enjoyed the most?
Mostly, actually it's 2 things. One, the candy. And 2, knowing that there's other girls out there that are like me.
Love it. Such a great question and such a great answer. Okay, the next question we have is for Gabby. So we're going to bring Gabby back.
All right, I'm here. Can you guys hear me? Oh, wait, hold on. Yes. All right, I'm
There
back.
she is.
Hi, there she is. Okay, Gabby, this question is from Ava. How have you been able to face going through things in life? With losing her at an age, you never really got to move past that teen angst. how have you come to forgiving yourself for doing regular angry teenager things?
Yeah, I did. I felt this guilt for a while just because, at 17, you're kind of in your own space. It's all about your friends. It's all about, hanging out and doing all these fun things. And your mom is kind of, there, but by the wayside, One of the regrets that I do have as I've gotten older is that I never had the opportunity for her to know me as an adult because I'm very different than I was at 17. But I did get to a point where I realized, you know what, you got to cut yourself some slack. You were 17, you didn't know any better. And I knew that she would look at me, shake her head and say, yeah, I agree. You didn't know any better. So you weren't mature enough to know the type of relationship that we should have had. Also, I didn't know that it was going to end at 17.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, you kind of just have to get to a point where you forgive yourself and say, I was 17, and just because I may have, made other things a priority, never meant that I loved her any less, never meant that, I didn't in my own way show her that I loved her as much as I did. So you have to cut yourself some slack and give yourself a little bit of leeway and knowing I was young and probably dumb and, now I'm not. And yeah, it's just a part of life.
And she knows how much you loved her. I mean,
Definitely.
You're certain of that.
Definitely, 100%.
Yeah, 100%.
Awesome. Thank you, Gabby. This next question is from Abby, and this is for Dayna. How do you deal with bullies when they come around, and or how do you deal with anxieties?
Gosh, two great questions, because but way before my mom passed, when I was actually 13 in middle school, I was bullied really badly, to the point that school officials and police had to be involved several times. So I felt fortunate to have my mom around for that. She was a really tough woman that taught me to be a really tough woman. And the thing is, if anyone's bullying another person, it's coming from a place of insecurity in themselves and hurt in themselves. And you don't necessarily have to forgive that right off the bat, because it's not okay to be cruel to other people, but you have to know who you are. And Michelle Obama says it best: when they go low, we go high. So you just have to keep that in mind. People are always going to have opinions. They're always going to take opportunities to try to make you feel as badly as they feel. And you just can't let it win. But it can be tough. And it's something that most people end up having to experience, but you just have to be strong and know yourself. Anxiety, part of the reason that I had to quit my reporting job was because I have an anxiety disorder. It's called panic disorder. I had it since I was a little girl, but it really spiraled when my mom got sick. And it's something that I was able to manage over the years with different therapy and medication, but there's a ton of different options. Something that you might want to look into with a doctor or someone you trust, a counselor. There's a lot of great options out there. There's a lot of support. I think a lot of people have anxiety. I think they always have. I think just now we're more able to talk about it, and it's not as much something that needs to be closed door, bottom shelf, can't be talked about, just like grief. So if you're experiencing it, talk to someone you trust. There are ways to feel better. You do not have to live your life feeling out of control and anxious every day.
Awesome.
Great answer.
Thank you so much, Dayna. This next one, I'll just answer really quick because it's fun for me, now being employed by empowerHER full time. I was wondering where the next chapter will be. You can email me if we can discuss. But in all seriousness, if that is something that you're interested in, email me. Aledo at empoweringHER, because we are trying to bring this to we want it everywhere, right? We don't want to serve girls in just one geographic area. So that is something that we're trying to work toward. Okay, so next question. We only have time. We're already 2 minutes over, so we'll just do two more. This question's for Cara. Cara, what advice would you give for those who lost their mom to substance abuse, or those who didn't have that great of a relationship or any relationship at all with their mom? I personally didn't have one and love all of your stories, but would love to hear more of what you think on that.
Okay. So one of my favorite quotes that now I'm like trying to have everyone commit to memory is, is a quote called the compassion tent. And I want to tell you how this sort of came about. And for me, as someone who wanted to tell the story of my mom and to be the face of empowerHER, and to, number one, get people comfortable talking about grief and loss. That was the goal. But my mom died of breast cancer, and she was sick for 2 years. And I recognized early on at empowerHER that some girls felt disconnected to me, and they almost felt disconnected to empowerHER and felt like uninvited, because maybe, you know, mom died of substance abuse disorder, or died by suicide, or what have you. And so I very quickly looked to any answer that I could come up with. I needed a script to show like my love and affection for any girl of mother loss. And so there's this gorgeous quote. It's called the compassion tent. And it says, you know, in the compassion tent, my grief is not more shiny than yours. My grief is not more important than yours. In the compassion tent, hard things are just hard. And beautiful girl, you can do hard things. And I knew that that was going to be an important message at empowerHER, because I know that your mother's everything. I've learned, again, I don't pretend to be a grief expert, but I know this. I know this because I had a mother who loved me so hard, and because I am a mother who loves my children so hard. But I know that you are loved, and I know that your mother is everything, whether your mother was absent or whether you had this very close relationship with your mother and you were just terrified, you know, for her to leave this earth, and for you not to have that presence. And so I think when we all become much more compassionate with each other and just listen to each other's stories, that it'll help understand each other better. My story is not your story. And I've said this for years. I'm looking for it to be, you know, it's Dayna's story, it's Ann Marie's story, it's Gabby's story. It's not just my story and my mother Kit's story. So as far as advice, I don't have advice for the girl whose mom died by substance abuse or whose mom died by breast cancer. I don't have those advices. I say that it's survivable, and I say, I see you and I hear you, because the absence of your mother, for whatever reason, it really is everything. And it will, to not have your mom here, I really feel, you know, for me, it changed the trajectory of my life. There was a before and an after. And I found ways to learn to live with that. And I think that's probably the ask of all of us, is how are you going to learn to live with that and still find ways to honor her and still find ways to pay tribute to her. So that's sort of my long answer. My short answer is just connection. I just feel so strongly that if all of us feel less alone, and if my way of reducing isolation and bringing about connection was starting empowerHER. I wanted girls whose moms died by substance abuse to meet other girls whose moms died by substance abuse. And I wanted girls whose moms died in a car accident or suicide or breast cancer. I just simply wanted them in a room, look around the room and realize you're not alone in your grief. I had no other answers outside of that. And I think you'd be hard pressed to find anyone who has a good answer for that. But I can say that for as long as I've been a part of empowerHER, and for as long as I'll be a part of empowerHER, I will always support a culture that was non-judgmental, that was accepting and inclusive, and that asked no questions at all, and just simply reminded us all that we were in this together. And look around the room, and she's powering through her grief. She's powering through her grief. Like Dayna was saying, I mean, Dayna has an extraordinary life right now, and you are in the entertainment industry, and I'm sure that you've got, you know, challenges that I wouldn't possibly understand, but Dayna and I can both understand that heartbreak and know what it is to power through that, and know what it is to power through that without the comfort of like going to your mom at the end of the day and crying on her shoulder. And so my hope at empowerHER was always just to simply build community and make sure that girls just had other girls to look to say, oh, okay, I'm not alone on planet Mars in all of this. my favorite line, I'll say this and just very, very quickly, but Ann Marie and I were at an event in Los Angeles recently with this beautiful woman, Alex Schindler. And Alex is a little bit younger than me, and her mom died when she was 13 years old. And the very first thing she said to me and Ann Marie when she met us, she said, "Oh my God, these are aliens from my planet. Like, you're aliens from my planet. Like, where have you been my whole life?" And Ann Marie and I loved that because we were like, oh my God, that's exactly how we've always felt. We felt like an alien.
We're like, we're aliens, count us in.
Yeah, we're like total aliens, but like living in this normal life that like normal life is going on around us. Our friends have normal lives. We go to school, like everything's normal, but we just feel like this alien. And just meeting other people who know what you feel like, I think just takes that all away. So.
Yeah, no, that's so great. I want to respect everyone's time. I mean, we still have a good amount of people on, but we're 10 minutes over. So I do just want to mention, we did get one question from Andrea. She just said, how can people reach you, or how can people get involved in volunteering or mentoring, etc.? So that's an easy question because we love people that want to help. We love volunteers, and of course, potential mentors. So you can always go to the empowerHER website, and you can apply to be a mentor in New England. You can apply, be a volunteer with us. And then the same in Southern California, and really anywhere around the country. There's a few people on here from all over. So as we said earlier, kind of back to that question, if you do want to get involved, we're here, and we're a email or application, whatever, away. Okay, and just the last thing that I want to say that I thought was so fun. So while some of our panelists were talking, I just put out a poll just because we have so many young girls on here. And I'm really wondering, what's everyone's favorite part about being home? I know that being home can drive you a little stir crazy. I know I'm stir crazy. But there is a silver lining to it, because there's all these like memes and things on social media like, I just want to stay home, cancel plans, and now we don't have a choice. So I did a poll and said, what's your favorite part about spending so much time at home? And I gave options: crafting, more TV, baking and cooking, spending time with loved ones, or sleeping in. And I love that the response rate, the highest response rate, was spending time with loved ones, just because I know they can probably drive you crazy. I live alone, so for me, I'm like, I don't know who to, like the squirrels outside, literally. So take advantage of the time you can spend with your family. Easy for me to say, but I just thought that was a really nice answer on that poll.
Awesome.
All right, guys. Well, we're
awesome.
just over 10 minutes over. So
thank you to everyone who joined in. Thank you to everyone who bravely shared their story. It wasn't easy. I spent 30 years never sharing my story at all. So I appreciate everyone. We're so proud of empowerHER. We hope to see empowerHER grow. And we just appreciate this time that we get to still be together and build community in a virtual context. So like Ann Marie said, empoweringher.org is our website. We'd love to hear from you. It's how I grew. I started this in Boston 5 years ago, and now it's in Southern California, but we hope it's in New York and Dallas and Washington, D.C., and we want to serve girls everywhere. So thank you so much. All the love.
Thank you
Thanks,
all.
you guys.
Thank you, Marisa, Lori, Gabby.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you,
guys
Dayna.
for having us.
Bye. Thank you.
So great to have you. Good night, everyone.